The saga of Jack Beresford, just one of the stories we'll be covering during the next 2 weeks of competition.
Hey, excuse me, Nancy. We've just gotten word from Hal Jones that the torch has just arrived at the Lust Garden. Hal?
Thank you, Brad. Just a few seconds ago, the torch arrived. And as you can see and hear, the masked bands have struck up Deutschland über alles, the national anthem. And the thousands here are responding with Sieg Heils. Chancellor Hitler is not here, but many Nazi dignitaries have arrived, including Rudolf Hess, one of the Chancellor's most trusted deputies. The propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, is now stepping up to the podium. And we're told he'll speak for several minutes, welcoming the youth of the world to Berlin and wishing all the athletes good luck in the coming competition. So as the propaganda minister continues to speak, let's go back to you, Brad and Nancy, in New York.
Thanks, Hal. There have been some interesting social notes from Berlin, giving some more of the international flavor always associated with the Olympic Games. Yesterday afternoon, Colonel Charles Lindbergh, who was at the controls of his own plane, flew in with his wife, Anne Morrow. He later drove to meet Reich Marshal Hermann Göring, who is commander of the German Air Force. Lindbergh and Göring have been friends for a couple of years now. As you probably know, Reich Marshal Göring was an ace German fighter pilot in the Great War. Lindbergh will be Göring's guest throughout the Games.
Also arriving for the Games was another German national hero, Max Schmeling, fresh from his knockout over Joe Louis in the 12th round a couple of weeks ago. And we asked him about the fight and which punch bothered him the most.
Well, there was not a special punch, but he used a very good left hand on a very powerful right.
Do you think you can beat Jimmy Braddock for the championship?
Jimmy is a very fine gentleman and a great boxer. I admire him very much. And I hope on the day of our championship, the best man will win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know by now that this is a big day. Athletes from 49 countries are here in Berlin. And hopefully these games will prove to be what the original Greek games here intended to be, when warring nations gave up battlefield for competitions on the athletic field. To give you the political perspective of these games in Berlin, we've asked Donald Foster for his commentary.
It's been reported that Germany has spent more than $30 million to put on these games, an incredible statistic for a country that was impoverished at the end of the war 18 years ago and in political and economic turmoil for years afterwards. Equally incredible to many Americans who supported the campaign for the United States to boycott the Berlin Olympics is why the Games are being held in Germany at all. A country whose leaders expound racial and religious policies that are repugnant. This belief is shared by many people in many other countries. It is only 10 months, September 1935, since Chancellor Hitler issued his Nuremberg laws depriving Jews of their citizenship and civil rights. However, to place today's events into proper focus, it must be stated that Germany was awarded both the Summer and Winter Games 4 years ago, in 1932, when the government was still a democracy under President Paul von Hindenburg. Thus, when Chancellor Hitler and his National Socialist Party took over in January 1933, the Games had already been awarded to Berlin. It does seem ironic, however, with all the global conflict that again threatens the peace, the most tranquil spot in the world today is Berlin. This is Donald Foster.
Rolling. Gentlemen, this is Barry Coleman, along with Dan Ashmore, my co-host for the 2 weeks of coverage of the 11th Summer Olympic Games here at the Berlin Olympic Stadium. More than 100,000 have jammed their way in here.
As we pan the crowd, we see a combination of flags and pennants, mostly the National Socialist Party emblem, the swastika. But this has all been carefully choreographed to let the world know of the rebirth of Germany in just 3.5 years of the Nazi regime.
Throughout our telecast, besides seeing our cameras, you'll be seeing the camera crews of Leni Riefenstahl, a former actress who has become the Chancellor's choice to document these games on film. Here she is, returning to Berlin after the filming of the Torch Run.
Leni Riefenstahl made her name in filmmaking when she produced the early films of the Nuremberg Party rallies in 1933, 1934, and 1935.
As we speak, Chancellor Adolf Hitler is just coming into the stadium through the Marathon Gate. As you can see, Chancellor Hitler has brought a military flavor to these ceremonies, wearing the brown uniform of the SA, the Sturmabteilung, brown shirts. It was so important in his rise to power more than 3 years ago. The Zeppelin Hindenburg has been crisscrossing over the Olympic Stadium since mid-morning. From this distance, it's hard to believe its length. 900 feet, the size of 3 football stadiums laid end to end.
The Chancellor Hitler is walking across the field, and he's being handed some flowers by 5-year-old Gudrun Diem, the daughter of Karl Diem. Karl Diem is the man most responsible for bringing the Olympic Games to Berlin. He could probably be called the father of German Olympianism. Karl Diem was responsible for Berlin being awarded the Games in 1916, but of course they were canceled because of the Great War.
Chancellor Hitler has reached his box at the Tribune of Honor. We're just minutes away now from the trumpet call that will signal the start of the Parade of Nations. The athletes from 49 countries, more than 4,000 strong, will pass and review before these 100,000 people here and millions throughout the world. So now let's take a news break. We'll be back.
There are dramatic ironies taking place this very moment as the Berlin Olympic Games are getting underway. Many Spanish athletes who expected to be in today's opening day ceremonies are wearing different uniforms, military uniforms. Ironic because these same Spanish athletes who just a few short weeks ago were preparing for athletic competition may have already been killed or injured in the Spanish civil conflict, which has now developed into a full-fledged war, brother against brother. General Francisco Franco, the rebel leader, addressed cheering crowds in Seville today, telling them there will be complete religious freedom in Spain if the rebels are victorious. But he added, and we quote, "The church under no conditions will be involved in Spanish politics." Here in the United States, it is graduation time at West Point Military Academy. And taking note of the many battle arenas throughout the world, General John J. Pershing, who led the American Expeditionary Forces in France in the Great War, spoke solemnly of duty, honor, country.
Amid these surroundings, laden with traditions that hark back to the beginnings of the Republic, I'm constrained to caution all my hearers that the situation in the world today is far from reassuring. No one can tell when we shall again need our armies. None can foresee the effect upon us of another world catastrophe.
There's news in literature and entertainment. Margaret Mitchell's book, Gone with the Wind, is expected to win the Pulitzer Prize in literature. But a new book is taking its place on the bestseller list, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. In the meantime, Henry Luce, who 13 years ago introduced Time magazine to the newsstands, has announced that he's starting a new magazine called Life, which will consist mostly of photojournalism. And finally, from Hollywood, the gross receipts for the film industry find 4 films heading the box office list. They are Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, starring Gary Cooper, The Great Ziegfeld, San Francisco, starring Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy, and finally, Intermezzo, starring Ingrid Bergman. That's it for now. This is Sam Landers reporting for Newsbreak.
A few moments ago, Chancellor Adolf Hitler took his place on the Tribune of Honor. And also in the Chancellor's box are Reich Marshal Hermann Goering, wearing his white Air Force uniform, as well as Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister. And throughout these games, the Chancellor's box will be a beehive of activity. We expect leaders of many countries to be the guests of the German Führer. The sound of trumpets echoes in the background, and in just a few moments, the playing of the German national anthem, Deutschland über alles, Germany over all. The crowd slowly rises, and there will be very few times during our stay in Berlin that we won't be hearing the anthem. I dare say we'll be hearing it played many times over the next 2 weeks for the German team, the largest delegation here, expected to do very well. And of course, it will be played every time there's a German victory. And now the Parade of Nations. The first team in, of course, will be from Greece. Traditionally, Greece is given that honor out of alphabetical order because, of course, it was Greece that was responsible for the ancient Olympics. And there's Spiridon Lewis in the native Greek dress. You remember, he was the first marathon winner at the first revival of the Olympics in Athens in 1896, some 40 years ago. And they're receiving a tremendous ovation.
We must tell you that political analysts will be watching these games closely, particularly these opening day ceremonies, for some sort of indication of country alliances throughout the world, where they stand politically by how the team reacts when it passes in front of the chancellor's box. We can look forward to a variance of signs and symbols. Some teams will give the Nazi salute, the straight arm raised upward. But there's bound to be some confusion because there is also an Olympic salute. Again, a straight arm, but straight out like this at a 90-degree angle.
Yes. A protocol dictates that every team dip its flag when coming in front of the chancellor's box. So when these 49 countries finish their march, we may very well find out political alliances that will be as certain as an actual pact between nations.
Okay, the first of those dramatic moments is about to take place. The French team, followed by Great Britain, are in the stadium and will soon be passing in front of the chancellor's box. France has sent a large team, 250 men and women. Now a tremendous roar has gone up for the French. The thousands of Germans in the stands think the French team is giving the Nazi salute, when actually they are giving the Olympic salute we just described to you, the arm going out to the side. We taped an interview earlier today and discussed this with the head of the French Olympic delegation, Jacques Bonnet.
Yes, there is certain to be a misunderstanding. The Olympic salute is rarely used. We have instructed our athletes to give this salute really in honor of our beloved Baron de Coubertin, who of course is the founder of the modern games. He cannot be here today because of illness, but this will be our way of saluting him for what he has done.
Great Britain follows France, and the crowd does not like their precise, definite response. A simple military eyes right, but nothing else. Bill Cassidy is at the entrance of the tunnel. Bill?
The Italian team is right now entering onto the field, and I've just been assured by one of their team officials that they will give the Nazi salute. We'll see. Dan?
Now, a roar for the Italian team. Politically, it's well known that Premier Benito Mussolini and Chancellor Adolf Hitler are aligned. And the Italian team is letting the world know of that fact.
Now from beneath the portal comes the team from Japan. The Japanese had a tremendous performance 4 years ago in Los Angeles. The male swimmers won practically everything in sight. The Japanese are marching in with special pride today after hearing of an announcement that was made earlier. We spoke with Ryozo Hirono, the vice president of the Japanese Olympic Committee.
We have received the news that the International Olympic Committee has awarded the 1940 Olympic Games to Tokyo. It is a great honor for Japan to be the first country of the Far East to be so honored. And Japan and the Japanese people look forward to 1940 when we will play host to the world for the 12th Olympic Games.
The parade of nations continues. What a magnificent sight.
Okay, we look toward the marathon gate, and the United States team is just coming through the tunnel onto the field. The 383 American men and women are led by Avery Brundage, the president of the American Olympic Committee. But the real story is the man behind him carrying the standard. He's Alfred Joachim, who is 7 times American all-around gymnastic champion. All eyes will be on him to see just what he and the American team will do when they pass the Chancellor's box. We had a talk with Alfred Joachim early this morning here at the Olympic Stadium.
Yes, I'm aware that everyone's waiting to see what we'll do, in particular, what I'll do. This has been a great honor given me, and though we were all given instructions, we really didn't have to be told. You remember what our flag bearer said in 1908 during the London Games? This flag dips for no earthly king. Well, I think that's how we all feel.